In today's video, we've got some absolutely insane news to discuss in regards to the Pokemon card world and some crazy changes that are coming to it. But of course, before we jump into today's video, make sure if you want to enter into our weekly giveaways, you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and for all other ways to help and support the channel and be a part of the community, check for our links down in the description below. But jumping into today's topic, the insane news that's been going on, for those of you guys that don't know, is there is going to be a complete overhaul to everything going on in English Pokemon cards. And when I say a complete overhaul, I mean an exact complete overhaul. So for Japanese product, for example, if you guys did not already know this, Japanese product cards tend to have silver borders. Well, English is now going to make the switch. It's been a long time coming, and by long time, I mean literally 2003 is when Japan made the switch over to silver borders, and so it's about time English decided to catch up and do exactly the same. So that's one of the biggest pieces of news to discuss, but we've got so much more than that just to talk about. Obviously, the implications for so many more things, such as, one, we also were just announced that there is no longer going to be reverse holo rares. Yes, you heard that first. Rares are only going to be holographic cards, which is also very interesting to see. We can talk about how that's going to affect the market when it comes to bulk, but also as well, quite interestingly enough, each pack is also going to include 3 holos now. We have no clue what that entails to yet, whether that be each pack is going to at least get a holo card and then 2 reverse holo cards. But it does seem that there tends to be a shift with the way in which English is doing things, and they're trying to push it more towards what Japan has been doing. So that is a very interesting step in the direction, and I think it is a good step. Then, of course, next crazy thing to discuss, Elite Trainer boxes. They're now going to include an additional pack. So it's no longer 8 cards for your standard ETBs, it is now 9. And then it looks like there's going to be specialty promos that are going to be included in each ETB as well. And then lastly, general Pokemon prices are now going from $3.99 to $4.49. So basically a 50-cent increase. So that's all in all is absolutely insane, and there are so many ramifications and things to overall just discuss when it comes to the news of what's going on today. Now, on top of this as well, there is also going to be a elimination of set symbols for English cards, which you have to imagine, once again, this is just them mirroring Japan. Don't really know if that's something of big relevance, but when it comes to just the future of what English cards are going to look like, I mean, it's quite clear as day what they're trying to do here. They're purely just trying to copy everything that Japan does. And I think that's a good thing, because if you've watched what's going on in the Japanese market, they have been absolutely crushing it lately. However, there are some, of course, concerns that we're going to be having in regards to how that could affect things in the market. If you haven't already seen, here are some of the cards that have been revealed for Scarlet and Violet. This is so far the only crystal type Pokemon that has yet to be revealed, the Arcanine. Of course, some people like it, some people don't like it. Obviously, you can leave your opinion down in the description below, but there's a lot of changes that are being made. And so the discussion really today is, of course, not only just, okay, how are these changes going to affect Pokemon in terms of the future popularity of it, but how are they going to affect bulk? How are they going to affect the overall print rate? How are they going to affect things with inflation and demand? So, starting off, I think the first question that needs to be asked is, how are things going to be affected when it comes to the overall bulk? And now, for a lot of people, you might not care about this part, but it is extremely important to still understand. When it comes to a lot of the value that you're getting off of booster packs, typically when you look at Japan versus English, Japanese products tend to have a lot less common uncommon cards, and they tend to have a lot higher rates of holos. If this becomes the new standard, then obviously the evaluation or the value for holo cards is, of course, going to be a lot cheaper, but common uncommon cards, potentially, if they do minimize the amount per pack, could become more expensive. Why is this so important? Because if you are a competitive player, then obviously having competitive cards be more affordable is something of value to you. However, if common and common cards become more rare because they have less in per pack, then obviously that in theory should increase the value of a lot of these competitive cards. Now, there's no guarantee how that's going to, of course, affect things, and there's no guarantee that this is the direction they're going. Who knows? For all we know, they could be doing the exact same thing that they've been doing, and instead of our packs having, 11 cards, including an energy, they're now going to have 12. And this could be kind of a ploy that the Pokemon Company is trying to do to ease the tension between a lot of individuals being afraid or annoyed by the increase in price, because obviously that's going to leave a bitter taste in a lot of people's mouth, with inflation obviously increasing things across the board. And so the Pokemon Company is like, hey, let's address this by more or less giving an additional booster pack for ETBs. Let's address this by adding an additional holo. Now, of course, does that mean that, when you look at the language that they use, they talk about it being not a holo foil, but a foil card? What is kind of described as a foil card, right? Reverse holos are still going to be here, obviously, but rares, reverse holos are not, and rares are only going to be holo. So the presumption is those two, of course, are foil cards. But now, are EX cards considered foil cards? Are we going to see a higher rate of EX cards? Obviously, we've yet to see rainbows or, of course, full art cards be revealed. So there's so many kind of questions that have to be asked in that regard, and how it's going to kind of mold and change the competitive landscape in a big way. With that, of course, talking about inflation, the question next would be, how is this going to change the overall demand landscape for Pokemon product? Well, I think in terms of the approach, for the most part, it's going in the right direction, since they're trying to appropriately ease the pain by adding additional packs and product. So I am definitely a fan of that, I would say, at the least. But also at the end of the day, the question really ultimately is going to come down to this. Is adding an additional pack for most people, if you're already, investing in Pokemon product, right? A slight bump in pricing, whether that be a $5 bump, you got to ask yourself, how much is that going to affect you versus the average consumer? Are you going to feel as if you're getting more out of it? Because in reality, if you're saying a booster box, or not a booster box, an ETB is worth $40, and you're now getting an additional pack, that pack value, equating it, of course, you do get a promo with it, but if you were to take the promo out of the mix, that's equating it to an additional $5 for that extra pack when comparing it from the $40 to $45 mark. Now, of course, the promo's hopefully going to offset a little bit of it to kind of like ease the pain of it, but that's still something I feel as if needs to be considered with looking at the overall effects of things. And now, of course, here's where we get into one of the even bigger pictures that we've been discussing for a while now, which is Eli, reprints. We've been talking about reprints forever. When are reprints happening? What's kind of going to happen in the future with this? Well, there's twofold in terms of what potentially could happen with the Pokemon Company. I'm not saying this is going to happen or it's not going to happen, but when you look at the general market with Japan compared to English, right? Obviously, English is a lot more print to demand. Japan does that a little bit if there's like an outrageous increase in prices for like V-Star Universe, presumably if that happens, but VMAX Climax and EV Heroes are a good example because those products were just extremely high demand. But when it comes to their approaches on general product, it's very much they send their product out, and then good luck on whatever the prices are, which is why Japanese product, when comparing equivalently to most of the ultramodern, tends to be a lot higher. And of course, rarities do play a factor in this as well. So, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But English, there is definitely a concept of higher supply to try and match the, of course, demands that is in the United States. Now, with that being said, if we're trying to switch over to a lot of what Japan is doing, the question is that going to be the exact same thing we do in terms of how we're going to look at reprints for English? Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, and it's entirely possible, of course, though, so we have to have that discussion. But I think what's more likely happening is that we've been kind of put on hold for reprints because Pokemon is now having to completely shift the way in which they print cards, right? Because if you're going from now yellow borders to silver borders, that is a drastic change. It might not seem like it, but it is. And then you're changing the formula in which you're going to be putting multiple holos. And once again, it might not seem like a big switch, but it's going to be a huge change. And so I think the reason why you've seen all these delays, quite possibly in reprints, is one of the two reasons. Either they're going full Japan and the reprints are not going to be coming as much as we would like them to be anymore, which I think is unlikely. I think it's, of course, the second fold, which is they're just making a huge transition, which is why Millennium Print Group, of course, they bought them out. And they're now making that transition with Millennium Print Group to have a lot higher capacity for printing Pokemon cards with this new style of Pokemon card design. So ultimately, at the end of the day, of course, as always, you guys can give me your opinion down in the comment section below, but this is massive news. This is insane. I'm really excited to see how this is going to affect the future of Pokemon. I think for the most part, this is a step in the right direction, especially when trying to ease the pain of inflation, especially when trying to take the good aspects of what Japan brings to the hobby. And of course, hopefully what's to follow with that is going to be English exclusive promo product, or maybe even copying Japanese promo product, but from an English version. But I think, in my opinion, more Japanese is better for English. So, but that is all for today's video. As always, you want to enter into weekly giveaways. Make sure you leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you, of course, want to help support the channel or join the community, make sure to check the links down in the description below to do any of those things. But that is all for today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Until then, I will see you all on Monday. Peace.